Well, screwed that one up. Well, we're live.
You didn't do the opening.
Someone didn't click the little thing, so I guess we're just gonna
No.
sit here and well, I'm
Well, I
fine.
think you should sing the tune now. You should hum the tune out so we can have the intro.
I don't remember what it sounds like. I haven't been on the live for a while. That's why I screwed it up. I mean, right? I mean, we could go ahead and do it right now, but we already got quite a few people watching, so that'd be kind of rude to put them on the background, right?
To interrupt them.
Yeah. But I guess let's start with the comments, since we're going right into this live without any of the you know, the build up.
Yes.
So we got Miss Cindy King here saying good evening, love, and good evening to you too. Sorry, just what are you doing? He's like licking my desk. Weirdo. TMG saying hello all. Barb saying good evening everyone from North Central Minnesota. Hi Barb. And then Justin can do the comments from now. We'll trade off.
So we got a conversation between Barb and Cindy. We got a hi Cindy here and a hi TMG. We have a hello from Kingsbury Crafts. And we have a good evening from Candace S. So as you can see, the show got started a little different. We didn't have our opening, and we are waiting on a third nerd. Hopefully they can join us. But we do have a design that we're going to be talking about for the Digitizing 911. Someone contacted Jeff. I think the background on it is that he is new to at least digitizing. I don't know about new to embroidery, but new to digitizing. They needed a design and wanted some pointers on what he can change to make it a little bit better. I saw the sew out, and actually I was surprised that they were asking for a digitizing 911 because it actually looked pretty good in my opinion. But running through the design, I definitely see some stuff that just in general that I think he can do to help change it and get a little pointers here and there as far as digitizing is concerned. So I think we are caught up on comments. So maybe we could just jump right into it.
Yeah, so I'm just going to add that the reason this is kind of a little weird is because Jeff is the only one of us who actually has Chroma, which that's the software it was done in. So we can't really do the Digitizing 911 without him because he has that and he's having technical issues right now.
Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll start off by just kind of going over it and talking through the design. I'll pull it up in Wilcom just so we have a visual, and hopefully Jeff can join us. If not, we can definitely we can do everything on screen just so we can show you what we're doing, and Jeff can get with that individual with the native Chroma file after all said and done. So let me grab my screen here. Didn't mean to do that.
Technical difficulties everywhere. I don't start the intro video. I didn't even have the right branding on this.
I don't have a share screen option.
And now you can't share your screen.
Wow, this is a great one here today. Oh, here we go. It's titled differently now.
Oh, I see. It's under present. Yeah.
Yes.
StreamYard's changed a little bit. If you don't know, that's the platform we're using to make all of this super nice and elegant. But
yeah, StreamYard has updated some stuff, so that's why I was a little slow finding it. So, all right. So here's the design. Like I said, the design from the sew out that I saw that looked like it was on some stabilizer actually looked pretty decent. So I'm just going to kind of go through here and just look at it as my Wacom freezes, and look at it as just see whether there's areas that I might change just to help streamline and make things a little bit better as far as soap quality. I'm going to pull up the DST file here. Okay. So right off the bat, when I was looking at the slow redraw of this, of course, this isn't in the colors because I'm pulling up a DST stitch file. So the main thing that a couple of main things that I saw right away is the fill on this ball here. I see that they did come through and used kind of some type of textured fill as well as a Florentine effect. I'm not sure what it's called in Chroma. So I do see that, which is kind of cool. The main things that stand out on this section here is there is no underlay at all, and it looks like the start and stop points might have been put in the wrong place because it does start in this area. It comes in, fills into the right, and then it comes back and fills in just that small area to the left. And then it comes in, and I do see that looks like there's ample underlay on the fills of the hat. The one thing I did see on the hat as far as the stitch direction on the satin part that comes around here.
Yeah, I just saw that too, that the stitch angle doesn't follow the contour of it.
Correct. Yeah. I'm going to slow it down a bit here. Yeah, coming through here, the stitch angle, it's following a horizontal stitch angle. So you have some really wide stitches right here instead of coming across and contouring that shape of the brim of the hat. Looks like we have some areas here. Looks like it's okay. We have some underlay to them. Underlay in that section. Looks like the underlay is good on this. One of the other things too that I am seeing sections of what it looks like perfectly 0 degree fills. I would definitely not. Typically, I try to stay away from perfect 90 degree or 0 degree fills, just because I'm not sure what this is sewing on, but not most of the time it's going to be falling into the weave of the garment when you have exact 0 or 90 fills. So you want to kind of go at a slight angle at that instead of having the perfect horizontal fills. Another thing I see is there's fills on top of fills here. It can be used. I don't like layering fill on top of fill unless it's absolutely necessary. I usually try to do a knockout of the bottom fill just so you don't have too many stitches piling up on each other. Seeing the sew here, I do see some really thin areas. It looks like on this detail here. So I don't know if this is an area that we have room to thicken up that satin, or if that's an area that we may want to do some running stitch detail. Same with this front of the hat. Same with these outlines. There's some thinner parts in here that have some really, really small stitch lengths as far as satin widths. I would definitely probably come back and change these to running stitches and maybe thicken up some of the outline areas. So, and I think it pretty much does the same thing on this side. It's probably just a duplicate of the one on the right. So other than those areas I can see right off the bat as it goes through, the only other main thing that I see is this is quite a large design to lay out all the colors first and then come back and do all the outlines last. I would break it up into pieces just for registration purposes. I don't think this is going on a hat because I think it's about 3.5 inches tall overall, so it would be too big for a hat.
They actually said it's going to be going on a golf polo's left chest in
Golf
the
polos.
comments. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, definitely, especially golf polos, more than likely it's going to be like a dry fit polyester. So the main thing that I would, the reason why I would break this up into more sections is, you are going to get some pull, push and pull of that fabric. So, sewing something that is, let's see, about 4 inches wide. A lot of times what happens is once you're doing fills on all the pieces, you have that fabric pushing and pulling and moving in that hoop a little bit. By the time it comes around and does the outline and it starts doing like the last 25% of that outline, the material has shifted enough that outline might not line up. It didn't show on his sample probably because it was on backing. So a lot of times you won't see the issues until you get actually on the fabric that you're working with. But those are the main things that I see right away just by looking at the slow redraw. I mean, did you say anything else that I missed, Matt?
No, I think that pretty much covered it. Yeah, because I previously didn't knock out like the underlay, not the underlay, the like the fill of like the gun there where it goes into the orange in your DSD.
Uh-huh.
I started doing that as well, and yeah, it seems to get rid of it. It makes it less dense overall, just a better design. So
Yeah, a lot of times when you do fill on top of fill, especially on garments where you have to add that little bit of extra density, like fleece or something like that, you have a lot of stitches hammering on top of each other. So, it can cause thread breaks. It causes that really bulletproof feel of the design. And sometimes it can even cause needle breaks if there's just too many needle penetrations going on top of each other. Um, and Cindy's asking if I can show the simulated redraw again. I'll just let it redraw through the whole thing here. I'll do it a little bit faster. So it looks we have the golf ball. We have the hat. We have the guns and the hands, the mouth, the detail. But as far as his choice of, or his or her, I'm not sure their name, sorry. Their choice of pathing and everything for someone that is new to digitizing, I think they did a great job. I mean, a lot of times you see people that are new, you'll see like, detail of the gun and then jump over here and do the detail of the hat. But the pathing choices that they did in the detail, other than splitting that up a bit, like I said, which I'll get into because I think Jeff did message saying that he is still having difficulty. So we may want to just jump right into the editing for you. And it is JR. So Cindy, I hope you saw what you were looking for as far as that redraw. But I guess I could just get right into it, Matt, if you want to look at see if there's any questions.
no, I was just gonna pull up the picture that they submitted. So I got this here. This is actually what it looked like. So that's like Justin said before, he was kind of surprised that they wanted to digitize 911, but it looks great here on the stabilizer. But yeah, on the polo, the knit, and all that, it might get a little warped. But and you can see a little bit at the top of the front sight on the right gun, or the character's left. It's kind of puckering in between the T and the sight, but
yes, yeah, I can see that. I'm just going to color this just so I can kind of duplicate the image. So let's see what's going to be.
So I'm going to bring up Cindy's comment. She asked, why didn't the golf ball have any underlay? So that's one of the things that Justin pointed out too, that there was no underlay. So that's just one of the things that if you're brand new to digitizing, you might not understand, or a lot of videos on the internet and guides say get rid of it. It's just useless stitches, or you don't need it because your material is like thick enough or dense enough. You don't need it. Sure, sometimes you don't need it or you don't want it, but most of the time you do.
Correct. All right, so this is close to what the color of the design is, just so I can kind of get a visual where we're at. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and just turn off the text so we can focus on the main part of this. And so, the way I'm going to break this up is I'm actually going to do kind of a couple different things I'm thinking about when I'm trying to break things up is kind of do center out. I always have in mind that a design can possibly go on a hat at some point. Especially with the main character here is going to be the focal point. So maybe they could use this as a hat scaled down a little bit without the bottom text or something like that. So I always have the frame of mind of center out, bottom up when I'm working with designs, just so if it does have to be adjusted for hats later, it's going to be a quick change for the adjustment for the hat. So a lot of times I kind of try to do within elements too to kind of finish off a portion of an element. So the way I'm going to attack this is I think I'm going to do like golf ball and hat, then detail. I'll do one side of the gun in hand, and then go back and do the full other side of the gun in hand. Just kind of separate it into 3 parts to ensure that. Oops. I got rid of it accidentally. Here we go. All right. So what I usually do is I come through and I know I'm going to do the white portion. I'm going to do the brown portion. Well, part of the brown portion. So let's do this. When working with DST files, when there's a lot of, as you can see, these in the color object list, even though if I were to digitize this in Wacom, this fill area would probably be one element, this fill area would be another element. But because this is a stitch file, it actually it's going to break up every single element the way the computer reads it into all these little pieces. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll kind of just isolate the portions that I'm trying to edit. Okay, so since I know I'm going to be separating these. This is part of the left hand, and this part is part of the right hand. I just kind of change these colors, and that way I can just grab them by color. We'll leave all this section one color. I can go back to those. Change that to another color.
All right, so we got a couple comments coming in. Mike asked, is that practice run and stabilizer only? Yeah, that's what it looked like. And then Ramona asked, would this be a good place to encourage testing, like fabric and the stabilizer combination? So yeah, it's not recommended to do your stitch out on just stabilizer. And the reasoning for that is, like Justin said before, like if, for an example, when you do your 0 and 90 degree stitches, it's going to fall into the weave of that. So if you're using stabilizer, if you actually look at it, you'll see that it's woven very randomly. So it'll typically look a lot better on that because there's places for the thread to grab. If you grab a looser, like twill or a knit fabric, like for a polo or something, it's going to be a completely different surface. So wherever that like low spot is, think of it like potholes on a road. It's going to fall in there, and the thread isn't going to lay exactly the way you want, or it's going to pull apart and cause gaps. So it's kind of why you want to make sure that you test it on a material that you're actually going to be embroidering on. Does not mean if your customer wants 23 orange polos with your logo on it that you have to sample it on an orange polo. You can use a black one that you destroyed before because you had a bird's nest. Just cut a little sample out, hoop that up, and then there you go. If you screw up a shirt, yeah, save it. Use that as your practice shirt. It doesn't have to be always on the left chest. You can embroider it on the sleeve or wherever you can get your sample on, but it's always recommended to sample it on your stuff, on the same material that you're going to be using.
Right. A little difficulty grabbing all that part. So,
and then Let's see. Cindy asks, are the handguns mirror images?
I think so.
They do look symmetrical. So
Yes.
So that's another thing. Work smart. Don't digitize it twice. Just digitize it once, and then duplicate and mirror it.
So what I did here is I went ahead and broke this up into all these individual parts, and that way I can come back to my sequencing and sequence them a lot faster to put them into the groups that I'm trying to do, and then I can go in there and do the exact edits that I'm looking to do, and that way my sequencing is correct. So right now we have the white ball with the brown hat, and I want to go ahead and bring the teeth portion, which is right there. I'm just going to go ahead and, well, they have the teeth in a different color sequence. So I'll go ahead and leave them in a different color sequence just so they can have that choice to do them a different color. We have the red eye. I'm going to bring that over there. The next would be this black detail. So all the black. Okay, so missing part of the black. I'm trying to make sure that I grab everything together.
Yeah, this is the part that sucks about DSTs.
Yes.
That's
yeah,
why,
because
I don't.
Yeah. There is times where customers will send me DSTs to revise or edit, and I do find that, I mean, this one's not too bad, but there's times where it's like there's so much little intricacies that I have to put together that it's just faster for me to redo altogether. So yeah, right now we have that whole golf ball section. Then we can do purple, pink, yellow, dark gray, and brown.
One thing I wish that Wilcom had was like how in Adobe or any other graphic software you can create like layers to like group your like.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Especially if you can like name them like left gun or right gun or main body or whatever.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Let's see. And then Candace has a good point here. She doesn't keep many practice pieces, but the thrift store is an excellent source for materials. I mean, it's cheap. It's great for practice. You can see if it works. Great way to get different varieties, experiment.
Exactly.
Without having to break the bank.
So as you can see, I'm going to run through this real quickly. I went ahead and kind of broke it up to the sections that I wanted to break it up in. Golf ball hat, detail. I got to move this one out of there. It goes right hand, left hand, then text. I do got to move this blue. Skip coder, skip. There we go. All right. And I'm just going to make the changes that I'm going to make to this hand since these are symmetrical. Once I make the changes here, mirror it, copy it over, and then that way we don't have to do the exact same changes to this gun. So now that I've got it all separated, I'm going to go ahead and lock down the sections that I'm not working with just so I don't accidentally grab anything. So all these sections are locked down now. And what I would probably do is, I know global underlay is used a lot, or I tend to use it a lot with hat designs. It helps stabilize the hat to the hat stabilizer that you're using. It kind of locks down that surface to make sure that there's no areas that are gonna pinch or fold over when sewing. I tend to use that with any design that's kind of a solid design. That is a larger piece, just because any fabric, it doesn't hurt to kind of stabilize in global underlay that whole area to get that nice flat surface, to make sure that there's less shifting in that fabric that's not already tacked down to that backing. So what I would do is, again, keeping in mind hat for the future, I'm still going to do center out. So here's my 0 point. I just go ahead and just kind of do a manual running stitch to cover all the areas and tack down the areas that I'm doing. Work my way back here. And the only time that global underlay doesn't work too well is if you are in a situation where, say, I try to use the first color of the global underlay just so it's not an extra color change. So the first color being white on this. So white thread under all the colors being used shouldn't be an issue. But say like the first color is red in a design and you are going to have white fill stitches throughout. It isn't a good idea to have red stitches under a white fill stitch. So that is one drawback. There's some things that I do in that situation to hopefully get around that. You either can do the global underlay and avoid the sections where you know the white fill is going to be going over the red stitches, or you just add an extra color change. And a lot of times I suggest to my customers that they use a stitch that's similar to the color of the garment. That's another way of getting around that. So let me get to my settings here. Typically on a global underlay, because you're not using it for coverage, you're not using it as, an actual thing that you're going to be seeing. It's always underneath your design. I use a longer stitch length just because, so it doesn't, one, increase your stitch count overall very much. It's just something where it's going to get that some penetrations of that through the garment to the stabilizer as possible, but you don't have way long stitch lengths that's, you have all this weird looping. 4.5 millimeters is usually what I usually go with for a global underlay. So I can move that to the beginning here. And one of the things I did notice here was the fill did start and stop kind of weird in this area. And like I said before, we're talking about the little bits and pieces that Wilcom is actually reading this. It's actually not even reading these as fill stitches.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot you can do there to manipulate that without
right. So unfortunately, like we mentioned before, this was native chroma. I am going to have to do a few things that are just redone here. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete this
section. I think what you actually could do is when you have it all selected, just do a outline 0 millimeter distance, and then that'll outline the whole thing and you got your shape.
And that's why we keep Matt around.
Watch, and then it's going to outline every single line and just like crash your computer.
Oh yeah, I did something weird. Yeah, that didn't quite work.
Oh, well, that's why you don't.
That would have been that's one option in Wilcom where you have an outline tool where it's a simple offset that sometimes you can grab several items and it's gonna follow the contour of the shape, so you can grab it, and if it does create just that outline, then you can convert that to a fill stitch and then you got your shape. That's what we're going for. So
I bet if you had the advanced offsets, you could do it.
Maybe, but I'm not that advanced. Let's see if I can try to duplicate this kind of wave that's going on in this ball. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to group that. I'm going to color it red just so it's another color. I'm going to come in here and do my fill stitch. It looks like it's ending over here. I always cut off my fill stitch short where it stops and starts to make sure that that push.
See, I would have taken that entire center thing and put it into a new document just so it's not so busy and worked on it, then brought it back in.
Oh, just so you
I
can
like
visualize it.
That's how I pretty much, yeah, I'll have like one design, but like 3 different documents for that one design. But
Yeah, I can see that. So you
Will
don't
Comp
start
loves my
confusing
RAM.
stuff.
And then let's see. We got Cindy saying, if you hide all the other elements, would that work? So you could hide them all. Another option you can do is you can select it all and deselect what you want to see and hit G. It'll get rid of all the other stitches for everything. It's because there's not a shortcut to hide and unhide. G's
Right.
it disables stitch generation.
Right.
How I primarily do it, but you got to remember it won't embroider it then if you don't enable it. If it's hidden, it will still embroider it.
Right. And the reason why I'm not hiding them is because I actually want to see where these elements are, so I know where to, under stitch the bottom stitches to get that coverage where there's an overlap. Because if I had digitized this where that fill only comes right to that outline, by the time it sews, it's gonna pull, it's gonna push, and it's not gonna line up to the outline properly when it's finally sewn. So that's why I have these elements showing, just so I can see where I need to kind of tuck in things and make sure that the overlap is there. So it looks like the shape of that is kind of like this.
Gina said, have you ever used the letter S to hide stitches?
Like that.
Oh, that way, yeah. I was like, I don't remember what that does, but it's muscle
T
yeah.
gives you kind of a true view. This is just your regular stitch view. You hit S and it just gives you the outlines. Yeah, I toggle back and forth. I usually do this just because it's easier to kind of see in the live as far as stitches. I don't usually digitize in true view like this. So it looks like that's kind of the shape that it was at. So, oops. Grab those, kind of put it in that shape for it. Looks like it's kind of pushing out this way, so I am going to kind of stop short on that fill. Delete the fill I don't want. Proper color. Make sure my start and stops are meeting up, so that global underlay ends here. Fill stitch starts there, so those good, ends here. So now you're going to have one fluid motion where that fill starts from left to right. And it's not going to stop and come back and do that other side like it did before. I should probably save this.
Nah, you don't ever save it. Gotta wait till it's in that backup and recovery folder of designs.
Right.
I just went through mine and cleared it all out, so try to keep it that way.
All right, so we came through here. We said this section was pretty good with the fills of the hats. The only section is here, and you can see in WOCOM, when WOCOM kind of gives you these dotted lines, that represents that those stitches are far too wide. So instead of stitches, it's registering it as jump stitches. So if this was ran like this, I'm not sure. It does kind of look like it. A lot of machines, depending on how wide the stitches were, it might have activated the trim code on that portion of the hat. So what I can do here is, okay, so this is kind of weird where it's kind of combining these two elements here that fill into that hat. So
that's weird.
that is very weird. So again, I'm gonna have to delete that.
So that is why DSTs suck, because you're like, I just want to move this single node, but it's a mixture of tatamis and satins, and it's like, I quit. And then you run the design thinking it'll be fine, and it has like 500 extra trims.
Right. Oh, you know what? There was some perfect horizontal fills in here, so I am going to come through here and kind of redo those. And another reason why you don't want to do a perfectly horizontal, especially in this, when you have part of your fill and you have a horizontal fill here, that's gonna, these stitches here in the fill are gonna run right parallel with the edge of that satin. So when you come back in, let me see if I can kind of see it in the picture. A lot of times, what that happens when you have a fill that's very, perfectly perpendicular with the satin is when the satin sews perpendicular to it, and the shape is parallel to it. Those satin stitches are going to pull on that fill. So if you have a fill stitch like this, it's going to pull the stitches apart, and a lot of times you can see the garment underneath it. So I am going to come through here, and not to mention too, different sections of the hat. If you do want to kind of give it some depth and a different look to the sheen of the thread, just doing different fill angles on the hat kind of gives it the light hits it differently, and it kind of gives it dimension. So it's not just one flat looking fill like our friend likes digitizing like.
He's not here. He can't defend himself.
No, he can't defend himself. Sorry, Jeff.
So that's fine.
All right. So
hopefully he gets his computer fixed.
You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and redigitize that portion. Just because it is difficult to work with those DST files sometimes. So I'm going to come back through here and I'm going to digitize this portion of it. And not in fill. Let's see. And again, when I'm working with elements, I try to go center out, even within the shape. I'm going to turn my underlay on for this.
So I'm going to steal the show for a little bit.
Sure.
You were talking about how if you have two like stitch angles, like one, for example, going 0 degrees and the next one going 90 degrees, say it's like a satin, like in this exact case right here. If I make this one like magenta or whatever, so you can see it. This background is pretty much, I think it actually is 0 degrees. Yeah, 0 degrees, and then this is going to be 90. So like you're going to have that pull. It's going to kind of separate. You're going to have a gap in that brown background, and it's not going to look quite right. So if I actually hide this background, you're going to see that the first element is actually this really weird stitch that just runs around where all of you're going to run into that issue where the lines are, I forget what the mathematical term, it's like not complementary, but whatever, very opposed. So like right here, this bottom of the cloud, that's all in the exact same boat. So you have the stitching right here that kind of prevent that. And then again, where it's running at a pretty significant angle there, all up here as well. So that's just kind of one really easy way to do it, to kind of defeat that so that you don't get a weird distortion.
Correct.
And back to you, Justin.
I'm just coming through and digitizing these sections. I'm going to lock down this white part so I don't keep selecting it. So I came through with an angle coming down here with this portion of the hat. I kind of gave this one a Florentine effect where it kind of looks like the brim of the hat's kind of turning. Let me come through here with another angle.
I'm going to pull up So he sent me the artwork, and I posted it in our little private Discord. So if you wanted to pull it in as a whatever, if you wanted, you could. So you have that. Carol is asking, is this program Wilcom? Yes, this is Wilcom. I think the title of our video may have said in Chroma.
It didn't. It didn't mention it.
Okay, it didn't. It was originally going to be in Chroma, but Jeff is having technical difficulties, so he can't join right now. So we're just doing it in Wilcom. So this is Wilcom ES 4.5. Should be the latest version for you. Mine is still rocking it from November of last year, I believe, because I don't like updates. So yeah, that's what that is. Gina says, that's something I've wondered about when you digitize for folks. Do you reduce stitch length to take a different machine trim codes into account? So I believe this is actually when you're working on that. Oh, I guess you're doing it right now. The brown right there where you're at. I don't know what the exact length was.
The one up here?
Yeah. It looks like it's like a 15 millimeter or whatever, basing it off.
It was about 11 millimeters, probably at the widest point that it was kind of doing the weird thing, maybe 12. That's why on the sample, it doesn't look like it was throwing trim codes on the machine. It just has really wide stitches there. So that's why some machines, typically 10 to 12 millimeters wide is where most machines start recognizing as a trim. But that particular machine did not this time. So if it was like 13, 14 millimeters, it may have started recognizing it as a trim code. And there would have been just gaps in that satin stitch with those wide stitches.
Yeah, and a lot of machines you can program it to do different lengths too. Like one of mine, I can tell it to not trim at all if I really wanted to, which would be horrendous. But
right. Talk about a major ka-chunk.
Yeah. Well, I just did my. Let's see. I can grab them without knocking everything off the shelf. Not that one. Yeah, there it is. I just did these. I wasn't too proud of the design, but basically that entire white fill, something happened. It was only doing 4 millimeter stitches, but each one of them was a jump stitch. So it was ka-chunking the entire thing for like 2,000 stitches. And yeah, I turned the machine way down because it was doing it at like 900 stitches per minute. And it sounded like the thing was going to take off. It was pretty scary, but yeah.
Oh, geez.
I don't know what happened there. So that design is going to have to be 911'd. So Ramona is sticking up for Jeff because you said that our flat fill friend, since he's not here, she's saying that you learned a technique which has dimension from Jeff. So I don't know. Sounds like maybe she learned it more from you.
So it's something that Jeff stole from me and told Ramona about.
It's just creative winning or whatever he says.
Yeah, whatever he says. All right, so I've cleaned up added the global underlay. And make sure that the fill had the underlay to it, and it's going to give it that Florentine pattern, trying to match what was in the file before. Kind of broke up that hat, gave it different stitch angles, nice satin edge of the brim there with proper stitch angles. And now I'm going to come through and let's lock these up. And now, because I did break up the details, going to be the major part where I'm going to have to change some pathing, because of course, you know, the solid fill portions is just a matter of changing the sequence. You know, ball, hat, teeth, eye, instead of, you know, going to the guns. Those are all solid elements that I can just move around as far as pathing. The outline, because it was all done at the very end and I did break up, I have to definitely go in there and start adjusting the pathing, and maybe even doing some travel stitches between some of the elements, because it may have done, you know, the top right side of his head and went into the gun and then come back into the bottom of the ball. So because I eliminated the gun out of that sequence, now it's just going to have a big jump to different elements. So we can see here where it starts here, kind of goes into that. It does pretty much do the top portion of the hat first. So that's good. So that's where there's that big jump from this to this. I'm going to have to run, add a travel stitch over to this one. And it does come back and do the teeth. So there shouldn't be too much editing. I would actually want to start at the bottom because, again, kind of keeping in mind if this ever is going to, I keep hitting the wrong sequence button. If this is going to be running on a hat, I try to do everything from the top or from the bottom up. So I'm going to start with this element here. I've got the underlay. As far as density, I'm not going to comment too much on density because even if they use the correct densities in Chroma, by the time it's saved in a DST and called up in Wacom, a lot of times densities will go to the generic default, which is usually like 0.4 on satins, even though there might be a satin where he may have used heavier stitch counts on a wider satin, which is proper, but the software is kind of default things. So I'm not going to comment too much on the densities since we're using two different softwares. So
plus you have to spend the time to actually figure out what the density was, which is
right.
It's not hard, but it's also not fun.
All right, so I just added a travel stitch there that comes up to where the hat does start. There isn't any underlay on that, so I am going to add some underlay. Comes back and does the hat. The only other X section in here that I was concerned about was how thin this detail is, and it is under 1 millimeter wide on pretty much the whole thing. So one way we can do it, we can opt. In looking at the art, it is a pretty thin line. So what I'm going to probably do is.
So I found what worked for a lot of my patches when I'm doing like a thin satin is I'll do the lowest I'll go is like a 0.4 millimeter width, but then I open the density up a bit to like 0.6 at a minimum to like 0.8 because it gives it a little bit more like boldness instead of having to do. So Ramona has an excellent picture that she shared in our Discord under the digitizing one, I think, where she did like a swatch card of like the triple runs and like different amount of like back and forth and the stitch lengths. So I've been using that as a pretty good reference too, if I can't go any smaller than 0.4. But
so you do 0.4 width on the satins?
Yes, 0.4 and then like a 0.6 density, and I can get away with it. And I don't do a underlay.
So I think what it is even though it's at a 0.4 width technically, as soon as you start reducing the density quite a bit, so if you could think of the density, of course, is the space between the actual stitches. So
yeah,
the lower the number, 0.3 is going to be higher density than 0.4 because that's the space between the stitches. So when something's really dense, you're having a satin stitch, depending on the angle that you're going on, those stitches are going to be pretty much parallel to each other. When you start opening up the density, it actually becomes a zigzag stitch. So those stitches, those point and counterpoints, they actually open up like this. So they're more like zigzagging. So even though the width of the column itself is 0.4, since those stitches are actually stitching at an angle, they're going to be a longer length. So it opens up the length of the actual stitch. So in the combination of that 0.4 width in the satin and the lower density, you might be causing that those stitches are actually stitching actually at a millimeter wide. And because they're kind of going at that angle to each other, it does kind of work the same way as like there's a backstitch setting that you could use for a running stitch, which Ramona just brought up. So I'm actually going to go ahead and use that backstitch. I didn't want to use too many things that were specific to Wilcom, only because I'm not sure if they're available in Chroma.
If it's not, a backstitch surprise is pretty much a run stitch motif that just goes forward and back.
Right.
So you could create your own motif that does it if it's not in there, which I would be surprised if it's not.
So I'm going to go ahead and plot the points with that backstitch. So delete that there. And where's my backstitch setting? So as you can see, yeah, it does. What it does is it does kind of do that weird zipper effect. And this is almost what Matt is doing when he's using that 0.4 and opening up the density, is he's actually causing that satin to sew kind of at this angle, maybe not this extreme. But what this does is now you can do one line going one direction. It's going to give you some thickness to it because you are stitching forward and backward, so you're not just getting one line of stitches.
Yeah, I have mine pulled up. Like this is one of the patch designs I was working on. So like the black on the top of the sunglasses, that's that 0.4 stitch length, and then the fill is, I don't know why this one's being stupid and won't show it. Yeah, so 0.6, and I actually have a favorite. You can't see it, but I have a favorite set for 0.4, one for 0.8, and then the 1 millimeter is just the typical standard. But so this is mixture. This is going to be 0.8. This is 0.1. So it's just a difference of how much dimension I want there.
Gotcha. So there's some just weird stitches in here. I'm just going to go ahead and move the points of this satin to finish off that area. Stop it there. To my backstitch. I'm going to delete these elements there, and that way we are
So I guess just a little curious, what software does everyone all have that they digitize or open designs up in? So we can kind of flow our digitizing stuff into that, since we have quite a bit. It's just that two of us don't have Chroma. So
unfortunately, I'm going to come back here and measure this area. That's about a millimeter wide. I'm just going to go ahead and add a little. I'm not sure why this broke it up into 3 little pieces in here, but I'm going to add some pull conf that is used in the software. This is weird. Not sure why there's little sections there, but I'm going to fix that. So in Wilcom, it has kind of a cool thing that if you are working with 2 different satins that you want to kind of make into one element, you can actually select them and then weld them together. And the only thing you need to really do is you need to come back in here and kind of maybe adjust once you weld them together, you need to adjust the stitch angles, and you might need to delete some extra nodes in there. And also change the start and stop points. That's a cool little feature.
So it looks like a couple people have Chroma and a couple have Wilcom, so pretty typical. You said Chroma Lux calls backstitch 2-ply. So it's an interesting name for it, but
Well, I'm not sure if it is exactly the 2-ply. I'm thinking it might be implying that it stitches one direction and then back over itself. Again, I could be wrong. Jeff would have to answer that one. 2-ply might kind of just do the stitch back and forth like that. The back stitch is a little bit different. Let me do a slow redraw. So I added that travel stitch there, comes back, does this part of the hat. So if I slow this down a bit so we can watch it redraw.
can you change your stitch length for that travel run from the bottom piece to the hat?
Yes. See how it's just kind of going back over itself. Zoom in. I get the buttons right here. All right, see, it kind of goes forward and back on itself. So that's what the back stitch is. And yes, to answer your question, Jeff, on a travel stitch like that, on this, it doesn't need to be, a really tight stitch. So travel length, I had it at 3.5. You can go 4.5. Again, it's a stitch that's going to be underneath all the other elements. So it's not something that you're looking for density. You're not looking for detail, sharp detail. So it's just something that's traveling throughout the design, and it doesn't need to necessarily have that tight little stitch. But I know we are kind of running out of time here, and there's quite a bit more to do. So we could do one or two things. I can get this information. I'm not sure when GAR is wanting or needing to use this design. Maybe message Jeff and let us know. If it is something that you're hoping to get right away, let us know, and I can finish these changes and either get you a DST file or send it over to Jeff and see if he can get you a Chroma file with the changes that we discussed. Or if you're not in a big hurry with it, we would love to carry it over to next week, and then we can finish everything on the live then, and kind of go through it and kind of see the complete start to finish. So let us know, JR, if you want to comment now or send one of us a message. Either one will work. Is there any
I don't know. What did you all have left to do? Because I don't know if you cut out like the barrel of the gun and stuff like that. Did you cut out the teeth from the main body fill?
No, because they're satin stitches, so it's not fill on top of fill.
Yeah.
So they're fine. To tell you the truth, the gun, because that part of the gun unlocked.
The barrel the bore actually looks like it's a satin too, almost.
I think, and again, I don't know if a Floriani pattern was used in these, or if that's just a weird thing that Wilcom's doing with this DST file. As far as how big this is, it's 11 inches or 11 millimeters wide. Yeah, I was going to say one thing you could do is if you didn't want to cut out that barrel, you could always do a satin stitch. Kind of gives a dimension. But yeah, we're going to definitely want to cut that out. But it looks like JR said next week is fine. There's a few things that I wanted to just add as far as not just necessarily making adjustments, but maybe add just to kind of give it a little bit more depth, a little bit more dimension. Some pointers on the gun. So yeah, it looks like we can put this off to next week, and maybe Jeff can figure out his technical troubles before then.
Yeah.
We can have him join us.
He needs an IT department.
Yes. That's what you're here for, Matt.
Yeah, I'll pawn that off to Ramona. She can be IT.
So I don't know if there's any other comments that we didn't catch up on.
Nope, I've been watching them, so I guess it's just time to close it out. And that's pretty much it. We'll finish this design up next week. Hopefully, maybe we'll do it and finish it up in Willcom and then take it over to Chroma, or just have Jeff pay its back by him having to do it all in Chroma. I don't know, but
or how about this? Let's do this. I'm impressed with the way it came out from, you know, a self-proclaimed novice to embroidery and digitizing. I think they did a great job for being someone that's new. The challenge here, I'm going to challenge JR. We're going to finish this up in Willcom next week. Since it's already started, I'm going to give you a DST file. I want you to go ahead and recreate or make the changes in Chroma and then show us the results afterwards. How about that?
And then we'll send you one of them fancy remove before embroidery nerd keychains.
There you go.
As a token of video. Yeah, I don't English well.
You don't English well. Jesse's asking how to connect with me. You can go to my website, jadigitizing.com. On all social media at jadigitizing. You can reach me pretty much all those. Are you typing that up there?
Yeah.
Okay. Matt's going to send a link.
Make sure.
JR said they started in July. So awesome job. I'm impressed. I don't think I would have been at this advanced 2 months into or 3 months into what I was starting off many, many moons ago. So, but yeah, Jesse, hit me up if you need something, and we will continue this next week. And I think we're all caught up.
Yeah. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys. I'll talk to you next week.